Hello, listening people.
Hello.
Hello, Bartek. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. How are you, Ryan?
I'm doing fantastique. That's a little bit of
Tastique?
That's a little bit of French there for you.
I don't think it's pronounced that way.
Oh, sorry. I have to say it. A little bit of fantastique.
No, you have to say French. Yeah, you have to say French in French.
French.
He did it.
I did it. Okay.
Francius.
A little piece of business that's become an amusement in my household is, you're aware of the TV series Stranger Things.
Yes, I'm in it.
You are in it. Could you point to which moment you're in it? He physically pointed, and he pointed to the audio options, Polish, for the Polish lector that they have there now for Stranger Things. No, a little piece of business that's happening in my house recently with my wife and I is I keep mispronouncing Stranger Things, the series, in different ways, and it just amuses Rachel. I keep doing it. It's evolved into just being noises at this point. So, at first I'd be like, Stranger Things.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, no.
That was the joke I was about to make.
No, and then it became like. Then it became like Stronger Things, and it just keeps going, and now it's devolved into the big belly laugh I had the other day with Rachel was, I called it Stronger Thunger, because it's just gone off the rails, and I said it in a goofy voice. I'm like, hey Rachel, you know that series on Netflix that's really keeping that platform afloat? Stronger Thunger! And it just keeps going. Now I'm doing accents with it, like I'm doing the mispronunciations with accents, so it's really happening.
Did I just hear Rachel?
Rachel's laughing already. She's in the other room having a giggle at me being like, Stronger Thunder.
Have you done Stranger Things?
Yeah, I've done that kind of stuff. I've whispered it as well when I've mispronounced it. It will be like, yeah, Rachel, I'm really enjoying Stranger Things. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we are spitting Polish likingly, because we're always spitting, and we're mispronouncing things because we're Polish.
Next time,
English is hard.
Next time, say it without vowels.
Other than the word penguin, what is a really difficult word in the English language for you, or one that was very difficult to learn once you were grappling with the English language from being a Polish speaker in your youth? Do you remember if there was any specific ones that leap out?
Not really. I mean, my experience with the word debt.
Do you want to expand on that? Do you want to pay that?
So, Ryan and I, a couple of years ago, with a bunch of other people, went to a theater that a friend of ours owned at the time, because Ryan was doing like a play for them, really short play. And then at the very end, they had like a audience participation, like writing monologues, and like, oh, someone pick a monologue and then read it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'll read one out. And first of all, I was unlucky because the person that wrote mine didn't write a monologue. They wrote like a dialogue between two characters. So
awesome.
I had to work with that. I think I still have it somewhere. And up until this point in my life, I never really noticed that the B in debt was silent. So, and that word came up a few times in the script, so I kept saying debt. And Ryan was like telling me like, oh, there was a person that I was sitting next to who
probably wrote it.
Maybe, who was like fuming every time you said it, and they were like correcting you like under their breath. I'm like, oh, well,
it's debt.
Well, that's the way they pronounce it, I guess. Like, oh, wow, okay.
They were cowards. They should have heckled you. They should have said, it's pronounced debt.
Like, yeah, well, I would have retorted, well, this isn't even a monologue, so whatever.
Burn.
I remember I was pissing myself laughing reading. I'm surprised they would have noticed how I was pronouncing it.
It's a difficult one. So we are here to talk about films, actually, on this podcast. Did we make a film? Are we here to talk about films we made, or are we here to talk about other people's movies? What is it, Bartek? What do we do here on Spit and Polish Presents?
I don't think we've ever done any of our films.
We haven't talked about any of our homemade movies. Your Ice Bucket Challenge we'll talk about next week.
Does that count as a movie?
Yes.
Not just a video?
No, it's a movie. Anything's a movie if you have... Yeah, as J.J. Abrams said in his Mystery Box presentation TED Talk that anyone can make a movie, and it doesn't matter how long it is. If you have a camera and a dream, it's a movie. So there's no excuse not to make one. And we learned that Wakaliwood showed us that anything can be a movie if you have the gumption to make it so. So yes, your Ice Bucket Challenge video is in fact a feature film that I won't watch on my fucking telephone. I'm getting real and I'm watching it on a projection on like an IMAX screen. And then I will then proceed to watch David Cronenberg movies afterwards.
Wasn't Ice Bucket Challenge like 9 years ago now?
Ice Bucket Challenge?
Yeah, it was like 2014.
Yeah. So, Bartek, talk to us. What is happening on this podcast?
This podcast is Spit and Polish Presents Pictures Powwow, where every week we have a powwow about a picture, but not like image like JPEGs or PNGs or, God forbid, some other one, web image. We're talking about moving pictures, the movies.
Movies? I love movies.
And every week...
Munga bungas.
I wanted to mispronounce week, but it has too many vowels. I don't know. Week. Every week we talk about a different movie.
Wow.
First week in a 3-week cycle, I pick one. Second week, you pick one. That's this one.
That's me.
And then next week is listening people's choice.
You pick movies if
Not
you
me.
suggest them. You there listening. You say, unless you're Bartek listening, you suggest movies to us. You hit us up on our social media, Spit and Polish Presents, or our email, spitandpolished@gmail.com. All of this is in the description. We put it into a list, and we eventually get around to it. We have a few. We're coming up a little bit on the smaller side, so help us boost it up, unless you've already suggested one, and then you're crossing your arms going, no, I want them to do mine now. It's been 3.5 years.
For some people it has been.
And I picked the film that we are talking about today. It is a animated film. It's a Belgium film, French language, called A Town Called Panic. That is the title of it, from 2009. So if you have not seen this, we recommend that you do. We're going to get into it. Now, this isn't the most plot-intensive film. This isn't one where it's necessarily going to be spoiling the majesty of it, but it is definitely an experience. It's one that, if you want to experience something a little bit different, very much go ahead with this. This is a comedy film. It's short and sweet. It's like 77 minutes long, and that's including the credits in there, so it's a bit shorter than that. It is, if I have to describe the plot, it's an absurdist comedy in a way, where the plot of it is you have characters that are these little toys, basically, these little models. That's the type of animation that they're going for, where they even have the little plastic mound for their feet so that they can stand. You have a cowboy, a horse, and an Indian live in a house together. It is the horse's birthday, and cowboy and Indian have forgotten to give him a present. They've decided that they're going to build him a barbecue because they don't know what to get him. And instead of ordering 50 bricks, they order 50 million bricks, and hijinks ensues. And that's the most important statement when it comes to A Town Called Panic. Hijinks ensues. Every page of the script should end with that. Hijinks ensues. It just keeps going and going and going.
You just said like 50 million, but remember in the film, there's a lot more zeros than that.
Yes.
But
yeah.
That's part of the absurdity.
That's part of the absurdity.
And Ryan, we know that this film isn't very plot intensive because I read an excerpt of Roger Ebert's review.
Wow, Roger, he must have loved it.
I didn't read the full thing. He did actually. He gave it 3.5 out of 4.
Did. Good boy, Roger.
But then he said something unexpected.
So we'll I didn't read it, so you can inform me.
Again, I only read one line from it.
History and relationship. Now, I imagine you don't have any familiarity with this at all. I mentioned at the end of the last episode that this has a bit more going to it than just this film's existence. There are shorts that exist. I don't know if you checked out any of those. They're on YouTube.
I haven't. No, I've got nothing. This is all on you, history.
So, history-wise for me, growing up, we had our afternoon block of entertainment for children, and in there you would get all of these animated shows, and some of them would be shorts. So in there, you would get animated shorts that would last for anywhere from 2 minutes to 10 minutes long, and they would just fill up the time in between the actual bigger shows that you would watch. So This being Belgium as well, you have Tintin was also something I grew up watching, but those were like longer episodes. But
Yeah, I was really young when I watched it.
I was a big Tintin fan. I fucking love Tintin.
I think it was Polish dub for me.
Elector?
No, dub.
No, dub. Sin. Bad. You can't do that. I had a bunch of these, and this was one where I really liked the style because they reminded me of the little toys that I would have, and the weird thing of growing up. There were certain things that would just exist in your childhood and wouldn't go further. So, like having a little toy of a little horse that doesn't even move, it's just like stiff, hard plastic. And same with like a little Indian or a cowboy. And it's like those aren't things that I have in my life now, but those are the type of random knickknacks that you would pick up as a kid. Somebody would give them to you, or you would accidentally take one from the school toy box, or whatever the case may be. And I really gravitated towards these shorts. There was like a series of them where you had this little town and you had these absurd characters. And when I watched it, they had an English dub to them. And the voice actors were, in my recollection, and I did watch them again, were very fun. The voices had a real verve to them. The cowboy had this really over-the-top, high-pitched voice, and the Indian had like a guy trying to do a Indian voice.
Was it like a European dub?
It was in English, so British.
Okay, yeah.
Because one of the voice actors I know, Armstrong from the comedy duo Armstrong and Miller, he played the horse, and he has this very dignified voice. And you would probably have seen him in something over the years, and he's the great comedian. But and he was the voice of the horse, and you'd have all these other little British or European folk. And then eventually they made a film, and I remember hearing about the film, but 2009, I'm still in my rinky-dink home country town, and the film only exists in the French language, and I don't recollect if it ever came over here, and if it did, it wasn't in my area growing up, so it got lost in the sands of time for me, where I forgot about it. You eventually move on. I know that for both of us, you just mentioned, like Tintin, you remember growing up with that very little. There are those shows that meant a lot to you, all those properties that meant a lot to you growing up, but once you have grown up, you forget about them until somebody brings it up to you, and you go, oh, wow, it's all coming flooding back. And that's what this is to me. I was looking at animated films because I really wanted to do some more animated films in just my general watching outside of this podcast and for this podcast. And this came up, and I saw those three characters, the horse, the Indian, and the cowboy, and I went, oh, yes. I want to see what the film is like. And here we are today looking over it. And yeah, it's a lot of a lotness. There's so much to dig into here. So I'm curious to hear what your experience was with this.
So this might be a little bit unexpected, but I really liked the film, and it was kind of my cup of tea. No, this was a really funny film. It was, like you said, it was very absurd, and your description of it as being like, capturing, I guess you could consider them like background toys that you would have had. Like, I know there was that one quote from a reviewer saying this is like Toy Story on drugs or something. I can't remember the exact phrase. It's one of the big, reviews of it. And like allegory to that, like these aren't these aren't like the Woody and Buzz level toys. These are like the ones in the background that you might see throughout the film. And yeah, that really does kind of capture it. It's obviously a very different style, but it also kind of reminds you a little bit of Robot Chicken.
Mm-hmm. I can definitely see that. It has that stop motion kind of jankiness
stop motion jankiness, but this one like even more so, which kind of gives it a much more unique. Like that's a level thing, but it's a very distinct identity compared to that.
There's a video game that actually reminds me of this, and I feel very bad because I've forgotten it, but I remember Video Game Donkey did a video with this game in it. It was one of those ones where he did like a bunch of games where you play different things in the real world. So it's like you're playing as a blade of grass, or you're playing as a fence, or you're playing as a a pig, and there's like a British guy or a narrator over. It's one of those games where it's like there's a guy narrating over. It's about life, basically.
Mhm.
You're playing as different strands of life and how everything moved. Like if you were animal, it would move in similar ways to this, where there was that kind of roly-poly jankiness where you would either be toppling from side to side or you would just be flipping as you were going everywhere. And I was just brought back to how that, I don't know what the name of that style of movement is, but when you see it in a town called Panic, it feels both unique to this and yet timeless in itself.
Yeah, I mean, there are like walking animations for some characters in this, but a lot of it is kind of like South Park, like waddly moving.
And or especially for the animals, they just flip forward and keep going like you've just rolled them down a hill and they're just like a slinky, just boing, 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 boing. And I don't know what the name for that type of movement is, but why I say it's also timeless because this being a tactile animated movie, this isn't a hand-drawn thing, this isn't a 3D animation in the way of like your Pixar. It's tactile because you get the sense, like with a Wallace and Gromit, say, where that's claymation, and everyone talks about with the claymation, you can see the fingerprints of the animators on it, and so it feels even more real. Why this feels real is it really has that movement, but it's also heightened of you grabbing these toys and playing with them and making them move and making them run all over the place.
That's a good point,
whilst also still having that absurdity where there's also moments where it's extremely fluid out of nowhere, like with horses' dream sequences where now both horses can slide and ski and really move with this absolute like precision, while in the other scenes the horse is the most janky moving one of them all. So you say this is your cup of tea. I wasn't too sure. I was looking at this going, is this going to be something where Bartek's either going to be on board for this or not? Because I can see why people would be prickly towards this. If you're not on the wavelength of this film's comedy, then there's nothing for you. This isn't got anything more substantive to it other than like the pure strength of its animation and its brand of comedy. And so if you're not on the wavelength, you're not going to be in this movie's wheelhouse.
It's one of the big dangers of comedy in general. Like if you don't find it funny for subjective reasons, like you don't have much else going for you other than, I don't know, like artistic merits.
So walk us through your journey watching this.
So this was a fairly blind experience for me. Like the only reason why I would have looked up anything was because I needed to, do the posts for last week's episode, needed to get the title, wanted to also throw in the French title, and it did show me like the poster. I'm like, oh, okay, this is a bit of I remember you said it was like an animated claymation thing, or stop motion, sorry. And I think I did see that like the main characters were like cowboy and Indian. So I was like, oh, okay, so it's got kind of like a silly premise coming up, like these archetypal character names. So it gives you already ideas about, the relationships that they would have. And when the film began and like, we see the cowboy and the Indian interacting, it was a big reveal for me when like they had the horse character and the horse spoke, and then it was like, oh no, this is like a trio, and the horse is not only the straight man but kind of the main character of this story.
He's the inciting incident at the very least of it. Like he's the reason that anything's happening because they need to get him a gift.
Yeah.
He's the motivation for the plot, begrudgingly to his way of life, that he's begrudgingly the reason that anything's happening.
Yep.
What did you think of the animation and just those visuals? When you turn it on, it does start off with 2D. You have these gorgeous, like, cartoony opening credits.
Yeah, it did.
And then it eventually fades into the postman, and he's riding his bike, and even his wheels on his bike have the little plastic mounds on the bottom so that it could stand upright, because this is clearly evoking those toys and those little figurines that you get in model kits. So what was that like? Because that's a huge factor to the film, is just those visuals.
Yeah, well, like you said before, it was incredibly charming. It was funny because you're seeing what they're going for. It's like, yeah, this is a postman, he's on his rounds, he's riding a bike, but it's also a toy. It has the limitations of stop motion going on. But it is powering through all that very genuinely. Like, one of the big laughs that I had throughout the film, and it's not even really a joke at all. Like, a lot of the characters are really animated and, they do a lot of things, but then you have the policeman character who is stuck in one pose the entire movie, where it's like, one of his hands is out, the other is like up, so it's like a sideways L the whole film. And it's just... And he moves around, but he's not really animated any much beyond that. He doesn't have as many like comedic qualities as like the farmer who's always yelling. But
that was my favorite character, Steven.
Steven feels great.
That's mainly the dub for that. Like mainly the voice acting for that one got the humor out of me. You'd even say nice statements with angry yelling, and I enjoy it. That's my type of humor.
Yeah, he was great. But yeah, the policeman just like being in one pose the whole film. And just there was like one point where I'm like, oh, do they change it up? It's like, no, they didn't.
You're making sure that they're keeping track.
Like, is he like using a magnifying glass here? No, he's not. It's all right.
The brilliance of a animated feature like this is it's seamless in terms of, well, when I say animated, I should also say comedy, where a reviewer can make it boil down to it's this on drugs and it's wacky and crazy, but there has to be a vision and a dream and a focus behind the scenes. So from what I understand, they took ages, like 3 years, just to storyboard everything out, like to lay it out and plan it out and know the exact shots and the lengths of these to get everything to this rhythm and to this pace and for all the gags to land. But when you're watching something as silly as this, many people overlook how actually nuanced and complicated the process of making a thing like this is. Animation has always had the classic song that we've heard of being underappreciated in terms of just how difficult it is. But when it's one like this where it's wanting you to think that this is like nothing went into this in terms of just how anarchic it is in its quality. It actually makes me admire the film more. And many great comedy films like this, whether they're animated or not, you do the behind the scenes, you look up stuff and you go, oh, they worked really hard to make it look like they aren't working hard at all.
It's always tricky when you try to make something that evokes like a purposely bad take on it. Like, everyone, take a drink for the drinking game of us bringing up our university play. But like when we were pitching our play Soviet Western, which was basically something that was inspired by stories like The Making of The Room or a lot of those like So Bad It's Good films. When we had to pitch our plays at the very beginning of that unit to like the department of drama and performance and all that at the university, and we came under a fair bit of scrutiny because we had to really emphasize, like, we are evoking, these so bad it's good experiences and this kind of ridiculous thing. It is not an excuse for us to just not try. We actually have a vision here, and we have to end up proving ourselves beyond that pitch. So yeah, it is a thing that can be quite unappreciated until you really break it down.
And with surrealism and absurdism, that they can easily be swept under that. There's so many... When we were at university, say, there were shows like The Regular Show or Adventure Time where there would just be people who even liked it would basically say, oh, it's these people and they get high and they just whack out a thing. It's like, no, there's far more steps to it. And so that quote that you mentioned, I'm getting angry thinking about the Toy Story on drugs or whatever. I haven't read any reviews or any quotes or anything. I just watched the movie and then sat here. And so that's kind of annoying because it's like, it's not like that at all, really. It's just wacky. And so when I turned this on, this is the first time viewing for myself as well, I had to spend the first 10 minutes getting past my repressed memories of the shorts because I haven't watched them in yonks. So there was lots of moments and things and little bits. I was going, oh, that was in the show. And, oh, I remember this character now. And, oh, I don't remember if they were in the... So I had to... For the first 5 to 10 minutes, I had to wash that out of me to just appreciate what this was. But man, this was just such a brilliant, fun time. This is one I can't wait to revisit again. Put it on as in a movie night scenario where you're having some food and just having a ball. I had so many laugh out loud moments. My favorite character was Steven, the next door neighbor. But out of our three, how can you go past Horse? Horse being the straight man, Horse being the one who's trying to be normal, but it's also the fact that they're a horse makes it even more amusing when it's like, I can play the piano, I'm dignified, but then it's a horse, and so he's just slapping the keys with his hooves, and it's just him and the other horse dancing is just a visual that when presented on its own, you can go, oh, that's kind of amusing. But the fact that the horse is the most human character, I would say, just adds that extra oomph to the gag of it all.
There's a lot of absurdity to horse's normalcy. Like, he is the straight man of pretty much the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, him and both horses, really. Yeah, he recognizes the ridiculous lengths that Cowboy and Indian go to sometimes, but then there are also times where it's just normal to him, and he goes along with it too. Like, he's playing cards with them when they're falling. There are some things that he doesn't bat an eyelid to. Yeah, he
has a million hats.
He has an obsession with hats. He's the romantic lead of the film.
Yeah.
With the other horse, who whenever the music teacher horse spoke, it really wasn't like a cartoony voice. It's like, oh, this is just a woman.
Yeah. It's just, and I like how they had to make her a female horse with like the long colored hair, and I always forget what they're called, but like the headscarf that she has on, just so you know it's a girl, just so you know it's a lady horse. That I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah, feminine trait, too, so you know.
I got a gut bust laugh out of just what the plot is. Just thinking about the plot makes me laugh a lot, in just that way where when you're told, like, okay, this is a feature film, all right, this is a feature film on these little shorts, and you think of I'll bring it up again, Wallace and Gromit, they're great shorts, and The Curse of the Were-Rabbits, a really good movie, but that's a film where some of that essence of Wallace and Gromit was lost because they had to put it in a 3-act structure film setting where things had to be bigger, there had to be a romance, there had to be more of that, dare I say, Hollywood isms, because it's a feature, it's a movie. You can't just have a plot that sounds like a Wallace and Gromit movie, but also could just be a normal movie plot. And so
the same applies to like Bean, the Ultimate Disaster movie.
The Mr. Bean movies, wonderful. Thank you for bringing those up. While here, even though you haven't seen the shorts, I can imagine you can look at just the plot of this going, oh, this is something they would have done in the shorts, but it's just made into 77 minutes. Like, the fact that, oh no, we forgot this character's birthday, and then we do this stupid thing that makes everything worse, and then everything keeps layering on top of each other. Now there's people stealing our bricks.
It becomes, for like the first half of the film, I was thinking like, okay, this is like a comedy of errors thing where like one error leads to another, but it's like comedy of error to an absurd degree where some of the absurdity that comes up later isn't necessarily like following up on something that just happened. It's just a thing that happened. Like, oh, now we're up to the part where the scientists in the giant penguin have captured them after they left hell or something.
Yeah.
And they have a gigantic machine that scoops up snow that they've collected, which they very meticulously target at people
because they're jerks,
so that they can cheer and laugh. And also, just because they're scientists, they will kick the shit out of you if you approach them.
I have a whole thing about those scientists. That was a highlight of the movie. I just really am enamored with films like this, where you can have them in different genres. It doesn't have to be comedy, but there's this air of, oh, you can make this into a movie. Why can't we? There's just that air to this of, why can't we make a movie about these three little plasticine guys wandering around, and they're called Cowboy, Indian, and Horse, and they order 50 million bricks. That's the plot. The plot is they order 50 million bricks and things go wrong. That's the story, okay? Yeah. That's all you need.
Well, where do they get the bricks from? Well, the brick website.
Of course. with the little Brickman cartoon that's like Clippy. And
it's the most accessible website ever.
To really just emphasize this point, to really just underline this. This is a movie where they begin with Horse being I'm going to meet the love of my life and I'm going to go to these music classes, and maybe the brick plot will intersect with that stuff. But that's not going to be the case once he tries to go home with the neighbor's animals, and he's waiting because there's so much traffic from all of the vans delivering bricks. That moment there really tells you what movie you're in for. When you just have a gag of him waiting in that T-bone intersection, and it's gone from day to almost night, and he's just fallen asleep at the wheel because it's been going for so long. That there was one of those early moments in the movie where I wanted to, I had a big grin on my face, because this is the type of movie where I wish there was more like this, where it's here just to be fun. Mm-hmm. It's here just to be fun. It doesn't have to worry and stress itself about following the rules of cinema. And you have to have arcs, and you have to have this act here and their low point and crap like that. It's just, this is really entertaining.
Yeah, there was a recurring element in this film where, the horse is signed up to the music classes, and throughout the film, he keeps getting phone calls from the teacher saying hey, class has started. Where are you? Are you coming here? And he comes up with an excuse like, oh, yes, something's come up, or, oh, no, I'm on my way, it's okay. And there was a thought in the back of my mind that was like, okay, this is going for a romantic drama kind of thing, but it really doesn't. It's just another little silly gag thing where it's oh, while she's on the phone, students are misbehaving, things like that. And the horse coming up with, excuses while he's in the middle of a crazy situation.
And then eventually it culminates with him finally arriving, only to destroy the entire music class with water, and then being kicked out of the music class by the custodian, or the admin person who works there, who at the beginning was his best friend, and by the end despises him, or at least has animosity towards the destruction he has brought upon the school.
I think one of my biggest laughs was actually from one of these phone scenes where I think it was when they were in hell, or they weren't in hell, they were in the core of the earth or something. And
the bricks went through.
Yeah.
He's going down.
He drops the phone into the magma, and then that makes the phone on the teacher's end catch on fire. Everyone runs out of the classroom, and then this is the part that I really loved. The fireman runs into the room, turns to face a wall, and says where's the fire? And someone has to tell him to turn around.
And if you have not seen this, again, please watch A Town Called Panic. The way they animate fire in this movie is hilarious to me. It's got charm. That's the thing about the animation. It's just charming. It is super charming. And so a lot of gags come out of just how quaint it is. And you go, yeah, of course that's what the fire would look like in this. Of course that's what it... The only other option of what the fire could be is if they got red and yellow paper and scrunched it up and did some stop motion animation to make it move. That's the only... that would be the other option for this world. And boy, there's a lot to go over. So I want to rewind to, they've ordered all of these bricks. This is a story, and they get all of them and they're stacked. And I really enjoyed it goes on for a while. The party at the house, and you're wondering, where are the bricks? And every now and then one would fall from the chimney, and one would fall outside, and you're going, okay, where are the bricks? And this is not like this scene goes on for a little while. You have little things happening within it, and you almost become comfortable in the fact that maybe we won't fight. Like I'm just enjoying the scene. I'm no longer thinking about the bricks, and then you get the revelation of what they've done with the bricks. And yeah, this is Baby's Day Out. In the opposite, when Baby's Day Out, no one looks down. This is one where no one looks up, because they've put all of the bricks on like the peak of the roof of their house, and the physics and all of it just doesn't line up, but there it is. And I again, big smile on my face, grinning from ear to ear when I saw that shot of what they've done with the bricks, because even though I've only been with these characters for 15, 20 minutes at that time, I was just saying to myself, that's what Indian and Cowboy would do. They would just put them on the roof.
It's, again, going back to the whole thing about how this isn't, a film where it's dumb because they just did whatever. All of their actions, like, do make sense to their characters. Like, when they're goofing off instead of working, even though they really want to get their house back, like, it's... Yeah, that's what those characters would do. They would just go back to their table tennis for a second.
They're agents of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
You get this at the end, where everything's kind of serene and back to normal, and they have a costume of a cow severed in half, and they do it just to steal Steven's tractor from him because they wanted to ride it. Why? Because they're jerks. They just want to have fun. That's their characters. Now, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to go to?
Let's see. I guess in terms of the vocal performances, this we did a French film not too long ago, that for Christmas even. And that was a live action film, so the pacing of the performances, the dialogue in that was very kind of familiar to us. This one has a very very fast-paced, a lot of its dialogue, very clear, and it kind of adds to the fact, like, oh, we're not watching humans here speaking. This is like voice acting performances. And they really lent a lot of character to these characters, like personality to these characters. And that is, extra great because these are just toys. Like, there's this one donkey character that's like a student in the class who has this really, like, deep, raspy voice. And it really captured, like, okay, this is a really kind of young character, but it has like a gravelly voice. When the teacher was on the phone at one point and he was like, just going crazy on the drums, you have to stop and like tell him off. Like I think I've had experiences like that where I'm covering a music class and I have to tell someone to get off the drums or whatever. It's just, yeah, it really.
I love Steven's wife. Her voice was great. Or and to your point, they have a way of making it universal. Again, this has a universal appeal. You brought up Mr. Bean. Mr. Bean has a universal appeal where there's no dialogue really, so every language can enjoy Mr. Bean. And even though we don't speak the French language, I can tell you who's who just from how much they delineate the voices and how emphasized each of their voices are. Like with Steven, where the guy's just yelling angrily all the time. It makes it very funny, but like with a lot of classic cartoons, you need to associate the image with a voice. I really do feel like for a very long time, and I'm not saying that this isn't the case now, but I feel like the huge selling factor to a successful animated character was how recognizable the voice was, how much you could associate the voice even before the design of the character. I mean, that was Mel Blanc's career, right? That was what Mel Blanc did. He had to make all of these wonderful voices for all of these Looney Tunes, and so Foghorn, like Bugs Bunny or Daffy Duck and so on and so forth. Or like, I love Foghorn Leghorn as a Looney Tune. He has a very recognized. Like, when I think of the character, I think of the voice more than anything else.
It's true, yeah.
And even though I don't understand what they're saying outside of the subtitles, I really liked how they had these distinct voices. Like Cowboy and Indian have different voices to one another, and even just from hearing just the tone, I can tell which one's the dumber one out of the two of them. Like, Cowboy's the dumber one.
Yes.
And that's not just because of the subtitles, because, you know, when I read the subtitles, they're both equally dumb. But just something about the inflection, I can just hear it, that he's slightly goofier.
I didn't really think about this when I was watching the film, but just coming back to it now, the fact that this is, you know, you're watching these toys which aren't really all that animated. When we think of like a 2D animated thing, it's much clearer on who is talking because, you know, we can see the lip animations. Characters
we
are
get
doing
close-ups,
yeah,
which
you
we
get
don't in this
close-up.
movie very much.
Not at all, no. Oh, there was like one close-up later in the film. It's like, oh wow, they actually do have like mouth.
And you get close-ups of horse the most.
Yeah. But what I was saying was, you know, we don't have all these like little subtle animations going on which indicate like, oh, okay, yeah. To go back on that a little bit, yeah, like some of the characters like might rotate a little bit while they're talking, but for the most part, it is just we're hearing the voice, and the voices are so recognizable that we do know who's talking.
It's really magnificent. One of the phone gags I really liked about Horse, just to talk about the phone gag for a second, was somebody picked up the phone and they're like, oh yes, they're looking for a horse. Is there a horse in here? And then Horse comes in. He's like, yes, I'm a horse. He walks over and he's like, hello, this is Horse. just that was a great moment of absurdity. One of the things is the physicality, the fluidity or the lack thereof. One of the moments that really I could watch on a loop because it's both beautiful and it's also silly is when Horse goes to the music school, to the school, and you have that guy, the admin guy, and he's in his office and he's got his little like dwelling that he's in with all the keys in there. Like he's playing the piano in there and he's like whirling around in a circle. Like that so much. That is just honey to me. I really got a kick, and it made me want to see more of that character because he has to be. He plays a role of, in my spare time, I'm having fun and being all crazy, but when I'm out and I'm being like the admin, the principal or whatever the role is, all business. Like, no, I will come with you, Horse. I'm going to knock on the door. Like, I'm going to bring you in. I'm going to yell at these kids for leaving their waffle on the ground.
Yeah. Or like mucking around the vending machine.
Which had like real food in it, like real life food in a big package, which is obviously bigger than them because they're toys.
Yeah.
That type of thing is absolutely endearing to me. Now, what was a moment of comedic escalation that really jived with you? Because once they introduced the thieves, I really sat up in my seat.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the thieves and all the things they go through, and I'm just trying to pick a single example, really. So one of the big conflicts is, you know, the house gets destroyed by all the bricks and they have to rebuild it. And then after they make some progress, you know, it's nighttime, they go to bed, and then they wake up in the morning and everything's gone. And it's discovered that there are thieves that are just stealing the walls. And you get the sense it's like they don't really have much of a reason for doing it. They're like, oh, no one's watching, let's just take it, let's go. Yeah, and a big part of the second act is them just following the trail, trying to find out who's stolen them, where they're going, what's up with this, and they're very trickstery characters.
They're like fish people.
Yeah. They live underwater, and you have the whole gag of like, oh, when they're underwater, you can barely tell it's underwater.
They're a mixture of a few things. They kind of remind me of Martians. They kind of remind me of like frog people in terms of like, you know, the classic like a French frog person in the scuba gear and all of that. And they also remind me of the creature from the Black Lagoon. Like they just have all of that kind of mixed in there, but in these very simplistic designs, and they all look the same.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if it was like they have like a hairstyle that goes like sideways sideways, and I couldn't tell if it was like a Dr. Robotnik mustache or something like
I couldn't
that.
tell if that was their ears.
Or-
Like they
or their
have webbed
hair.
ears.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. They're simplistic. They evoke what you need to know. Like when I saw them, I said, "Are those aliens or are those fish people?"
I was going to use the word alien, but in the sense that like they're clearly different from all the other characters. You know, they live underwater. They have their own little weird eccentricities, like waffles just keep getting made. Um, yeah, in terms of saying like the weird eccentricities, like I actually thought at one point, um, the absurdity kind of reminded me of in South Park whenever they watch like Terrence and Phillip, where it's like, oh, it's a weird show from that weird country, and the weird country is Canada, but like I felt that kind of weirdness in this film a little bit. It was really funny.
We did a film a couple weeks back called Tears of the Black Tiger,
Mhm.
which on the Roger Ebert website had a review from somebody who was not Roger Ebert. And they made a comment that we all laughed and scoffed at and said was embarrassing. I said this was embarrassing. And then I read it and you said, what was the word you used, Ryan? Embarrassing? Correct. Which was they summed up this beautiful film, Tears of the Black Tiger, please watch it, as this could have been a YouTube video. In fact, it would have worked better as like an 8-minute long YouTube video.
Oh, right, yes.
And I don't mean this as an insult, but like this really reminds me of the stuff that you have seen on YouTube in its entire lifetime of animators of different ilks, different varieties, whether they're flash or stop motion, and they just put their stuff out there and there's just unbridled, no filter, just here's my thing. Here it is, whether it is as silly as this or it's gross or whatever the case may be. And there's a joyous nature when you stumble across those. Again, this is why this has a nostalgia for me, where I grew up with these as little animated shorts that would be in between shows, but then eventually over time, these would be little animated things I would find on YouTube, whether on my own or somebody would link me one or recommend me something. And I imagine you've had situations like that in your internet life. I don't know if you've been much of a watcher of just random like animated things on YouTube at all, but this reminded me of that.
Here and there, like before YouTube, obviously you had websites like Newgrounds,
yeah.
and other websites where people are uploading like their Flash or .sfw or Swift files. And there are a lot of silly things like that. Like even just like 2 weeks ago, my stepbrother was messaging me because he really wanted to watch something or a couple of things that we'd found on the internet like 20 years ago. And I managed to find like this website that has like a really long archive of a lot of them, and I managed to find a couple of them and send him the link, and he told me like, yeah, they worked fine, thanks for that. Yeah, the really 21st century like internet animation, it has a charm to it.
And I just thought of how this is a type of animated project where I'm surprised it hasn't thrived more because of internet culture. I think when I look it up, there's some people who really like it. I'm not saying it doesn't have its audiences, but I think that this is something that could really just be a killer. And I really liked with the fish people, they didn't fall into they become nicer as the film goes on. They're still jerks the whole way through, even at the end when they've gotten nice, like they're all buddy with everyone and they have their house and the postman's going under there to deliver them mail, which great progression. And Stephen's pond.
That's what I was going to say, yeah. They were in the pond all
They were in the pond all along, which is a grander body of water than you expected. And I love those type of gags in movies. I really like that they're still kind of assholes, and like even when everything's going on, like they're falling through here and they've been flung over here and like they have this opportunity, they will still find the way to screw over our main characters. Like, let's dump them in the ocean, fuck them, or just things like that. And so I had a great amusement. Now, can we talk about the scientists?
I was literally about to ask you, like, what did you want to say about them?
This was the funniest section of the movie for me. Everything with them was pure gold. Once we discovered what they were using this big robot penguin for, I said to myself, the movie cannot get better than this.
I know that I like went over the whole deal earlier, like very matter of factly, but it really is that great.
It is. They are presented as these somewhat noble scientists, like they're doing something for a purpose. Like you associate that, like they're doing something out
Yeah.
here. They're doing some kind of scientific test and
It's very elaborate, and they don't talk at all.
not no.
Well, they like mumble.
They
or
mumble
something,
to one another, and yeah, there's a lot of visual storytelling with them, and you're led to believe, oh, they're doing something with snow, and they're doing something with this penguin. Is going to be something interesting, and maybe our crew of characters are going to fuck it up for them. No, they're bullies. They have this thing just to launch snowballs at random people across the globe, it seems, and they're just pricks. They're just pricks that are just nasty people, and you go, okay, now we know that. I can't wait for our characters to defeat these guys. No, because our characters are weak in comparison to these scientists. These scientists are the strongest people in the movie.
Yeah.
That's when it gets the most animated as well, because you have now fight scenes with these toys. And they grab them and smack them from side to side, like boom, 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 boom. Just classic. And oh man, I mean, talk me through about your experience with this part of the movie.
Oh my god, there was so much going on. There was so much going on. I don't even know that I could.
I love how they animated the snow, like when they fell into the vat of it and they're just rolling around, just like, what is this? What's going on?
I know that. I mean, the big reveal about what the machine was for, like, it was quite a slow build-up. It was very intricate. Like, our main characters are stuck in, this, like, big pile of snow that they have in their facility, and, like, a big scooper's coming down, and I thought, like, oh, they're gonna be, like, pressed flat? Like, is this a hammer coming down on them? No, it's like a scooper.
Like an ice cream scoop.
Yeah, like, it goes down in the snow, rotates 180 degrees, pulls out a big snowball, and then it comes out, and the scientists, like, take their time to examine it, mumble to each other, and then they, analyze it, and then they have like this reticle that's like looking at the town and someone in the town, and then they like start up a machine. Snowball gets launched by the big penguin is basically like this giant robot penguin that's like T-posed. And the snowball is hanging on like the end of the fin, and it like barely flips its fin to like launch the snowball, lands on someone. They come out from the top, like looking like, oh, what's going on? And the Steins just start laughing, and it's like, wow, is this it? This is what they were going for, and it's just a great payoff.
And what did you think of their super strength?
And then that just escalated it further, because what do we associate, with scientists? They're the brains, not the brawn. But no, these are the brains and the brawn.
It's just bullies.
They're bullies.
You brought up a really great point, which was it takes its time, and the thing that is great about A Town Called Panic is it has a very fast pace, but to maintain its pace, it does know when to slow down. And so when it slows down, just like with the sequence, it makes the gag, it makes the payoff even grander. Where when you break it down as a synopsis, where we can go boom, 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 you can make it sound like, and this is an obvious next step of crazy escalation and things are ramping up, but it does take its time. It does have the characters confused. They've just been going through one thing after the next, and now that they've stopped here, it actually feels really important that now that the film has stopped to bask in whatever this is. And so it's really memorable outside of just how funny and amusing and quirky and different it is. It's just the pacing of it has been so of a piece. Now that we've deviated for a moment from that, that's what I also liked about the party scene, where there was a certain pacing and atmosphere to that party scene in the beginning, where we reveal where all the bricks are. Oh, another running gag throughout this is Steven gets arrested.
Mm-hmm.
Because what was the reason he got arrested? Was it that they thought he was the one that stole all the bricks, or he did something with the bricks?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I was confused about earlier with the policeman, when I thought he had the magnifying glasses, he was examining something in the bricks, and he found like some incredibly circumstantial evidence that like would have suggested that Stephen did it, and rather than like be innocent until proven guilty, it's like, okay, well, I'll throw him in jail.
He has to build a jail first.
Yeah.
I love that he built the jail, throw Steven in, and there's a great little piece of audio work there where Steven's always yelling, but once you throw him in the prison, he's yelling. You can still hear his yelling, but it's really muffled now because he's behind something. Well, even when we have exterior shots of him in his house, he's yelling and we can hear it crystal clear. Like when the postman knocks at his door, or when somebody knocks at his door, it's like, who's knocking at my door? You can still hear it. Like there's nothing in the way, but when he's thrown in the jail, now there's something in the way. And when they let him out, I really liked, you would expect him to be really pissed, but he's actually quite cordial about it. He's like, that's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. Like, he just keeps going about his day. Just in terms of the benefits of animation, one of the gags I really actually liked early on was when they did build the barbecue set, when Horse pulls the car in and it hits the barbecue, but some of the car still keeps going and breaks apart. Brilliant. That's just one of those brilliant...
Yeah, it basically just took out the engine, but like not the wheels, so the wheels just kept turning it.
But after the scientists, they get launched and they get taken off course for a bit, and they eventually find their way back, and they're trying to solve everything. We even get a eventual like leap forward in a year. And I really liked the nature of the movie overall, where it's a series of shorts strung together. That's what it realistically is. But I really liked how the ending showed us that this is like a cartoon never ending, where they have their new house. And you quickly see how it breaks and has all of these holes in the places and patched up door like the old house. And you get this, and you go, oh, okay, this is just going to be a repeating cycle for these characters, like it is always with cartoons. Like it's just always going to be.
It always goes back to the status quo.
The status quo is brought back. The chaos is back. There's going to be more adventures. You can do literally anything with these guys. There's no limits to being able to bring this back in shorts or films or whatever the case may be, because it just has that pure essence of animation where you can just make it endure, like with Looney Tunes, like with Mickey Mouse and all of that, where been around for ages and here we are still with them and they're still doing stuff. It's Scooby-Doo. That's one too, where it's like Scooby-Doo's still here, still doing stuff.
Is that the name of the new show, Scooby-Doo? That's one too?
I wish. It's no Velma.
Yeah, that one doesn't rhyme.
That one's got a...
Should have been Velbel.
Velma's a show that everyone on the internet agrees is bad, which is one of the unique cases of a show. But is there any other bits of A Town Called Panic you wanna hit upon? Any specific gags or moments or characters?
One other thing. This is incredibly minor, but this is a film where we have like animal characters that are just matter-of-factly living with humans, but we also have like the farm animals.
Yeah.
It did, and usually when you have a thing like this, you've got like, oh, there's Goofy the dog and Pluto the dog. Like, what's the logic of this universe kind of thing? And in this one, it seems to be a very cohabitated kind of thing. Like, the animals still have like humanistic traits, like the way that they sleep in the barn. They've got like the pillows. They still like walk on all fours. They still clearly have their like animal roles. Like they even ask at one point, like, so are we going out or something? And like a lot of the students at the school are animals. Like I thought that was a really interesting thing that was going on.
It was great. I liked at the end where they started launching the pigs as just weapons at Steven's house.
Yeah, that was a thing.
There was even a moment where one of the pigs rolled over and you saw on their belly like the where this was made on its belly. And I really thought that was great. And you see like the seams of the plastic and so wonderful. I highly recommend A Town Called Panic. There's the shorts, of course. They've done more since this movie. I think there's like an hour-long special. There's like a Christmas one. There's more to chomp into with these guys, and I hope it's piqued your interest, Bartek, and I hope the listening people give it a look as well. I think it's It is just what I needed when I was looking through. I need an animated film. I don't always need my animated films to be these beautiful, heady masterpieces like when we do the Japanese animations on this podcast, but sometimes I just need something like this. And I'm also very glad that we've managed to find a lot to talk about here outside of just this gag good, because when I walked in, I was like, what? I don't know how long we're going to last with this, because it is very, very simplistic.
We've been doing this podcast almost 8 years, and I think every other episode I always come in like this, and we always come out like, oh, that actually wasn't too bad.
we always have something to dig into there. Any final words, and do you recommend?
Well, yes, I do definitely recommend. This is a great film. Definitely check it out. And really, it's not that long. It's like 75 minutes. Like, it goes through very quickly, very easy watch. Like, it's very, like you said earlier, you'd put it on the movie night. Like, this is an easy pick. So I didn't read the Ebert review. I only saw, like, the reception section on Wikipedia, and like it made a statement about what Ebert gave it and like one line from it. And it was a line where it's like, oh, you're not wrong, but what a thing to say. So he gave it 3.5 out of 4 stars, and so clearly
high.
Very high. He loved it seemed. And he said, yeah, this is a great film. It's an absurd comedy. You don't have to worry too much about the story. It's the type of thing that would be really easy to watch over multiple sessions.
Yeah, I can see, I can see why, because like I said, it
is like a series of sketches.
Vignettes and shorts and stuff. But at the same time, is he watching Monty Python movies in sessions?
Well, and also at the same time, this film's like less than feature length long. And also in the modern day, like obviously this is after his time, but it really kind of evokes like what people were saying about, of all things, The Irishman.
Oh,
where it has like the opposite thing of being incredibly long. So it's just really bizarre that we have this same sort of notion of how to watch it for something that's really short and something that's really long.
What he's saying is this would have been a great movie to chop up and put on Vine. And that's what Roger Ebert was really getting at, but Vine didn't exist in 2009. So he was ahead of his time, Roger.
Yeah, he was.
So we are now at the point where we are going to hear what the recommendation for next episode is. What film are we talking about?
From the listening people, I believe.
From you, the listening people. It's time for a choice from a parent, one of my parents.
Ooh, the K-Mutiny 2.
If only. It is a film that Roger Ebert gives 3.5 stars to, actually, so this is quite serendipitous. Although, I think his site only says it's 3, even though his actual review is 3.5. It's a Jack Nicholson film, Kathleen Turner, directed by John Huston. It is Prizzi's Honor. It's a gangster comedy film.
Okay.
And it has William Hickey in it.
There we go.
The William Hickey from My Blue Heaven. I've referenced this film when we've also done William Hickey movies from time to time. So Angelica Houston's in this as well.
I was going to say, we did Mouse Hunt a bit more recently than My Blue Heaven.
Yes, but we've done 3 William Hickey movies. We've done Major Payne, My Blue Heaven, and Mouse Hunt.
Yep.
This will be the 4th. So people, make sure to check out Prizzi's Honor. I'll make sure to put this in the description as well, where the title and the year, I'm forgetting what year, it's in the 80s. And so make sure to give it a watch. We'll be talking about it next time. Like I said at the top, you can find us on social medias under Spit and Polish Presents. We post on there. You can interact with us on there. You can suggest movies to us, or you can just email us over at
spitandpolished@gmail.com.
That is all we have for you this time. Thank you so much for tuning in and hearing us two just wobble and chat and go over stronger thungas and things of that variety. Bartek, a pleasure as usual, and I hope you remember to be kind to each other.
It's actually Cal Bartek. Indy Ryan.
Indy?
If we had a guest, we'd do like a horse pun with them.
Yeah, our friend Will could have been horse. He's the straight man of our dynamic.
But William doesn't have any of the letters from horse. Well, Will doesn't. Does William?
No.
Man.
A. No horse.
Jeez, Will, what's wrong with you? No letters from horse?